Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the second of the stats videos for July, in which I wrap up the second quarter stats for 2026 so far. You should have already seen my June top 5 where I wrap up the stats for the month of June. This is going to be everything from April to June, and I'll also give you the 6-month stats for the majority of them as well. We're just going to put the laptop in front of me because my gaze is always wherever the laptop is. So if you've never seen one of my quarterly wrap-ups, I go through some book stats, I go through some saving stats through various subscriptions and libraries and bits and pieces that I use. I'm also going to go through my reading challenge updates, my bingo board from hell updates, and a few other bits and pieces. So we're going to jump straight into it. So starting off with the quarterly stats, in terms of books read in this quarter, I read 143 books, but for the first 6 months of the year, I have read 359 books so far. In the last quarter, I reread 40 books, bringing my total for the first 6 months of the year to 85 books reread. In the last quarter, I had 44 new to me authors that I picked up, bringing my total for the year so far to 109 new to me authors. In this last quarter, I read 36,243 pages, bringing my total for the first 6 months of the year to 76,168 pages read. In the last quarter, I listened to 24,842 minutes of audiobooks. I do speed everything up, take a breath. I listen to everything on a very quick speed, bringing my total minutes read for the year to 48,252 minutes. In the last quarter, I DNF'd 18 books, bringing my total to 37 for the year so far. My most read genre, unsurprisingly, was romance at 56.3%, and for the year it is romance still, but that percentage drops to 50.6% of my reading is romance across the first 6 months of the year. In the last quarter, my most read subgenre of romance was hockey romance, with 31.8% of books that I read were hockey romances. But overall, in terms of subgenres, contemporary romance is the most at 29.4%. I don't combine hockey, sports, and contemporary romances because I see them as slightly different. Like, they're very specific subgenres. Anything that doesn't sort of fit into a specific contemporary subgenre just goes up to contemporary. And in terms of books that I've rated 4 stars or above, so while I don't give book ratings in my videos, I do rate books for myself personally. I think ratings are really personal. I don't think they actually mean anything to anyone else, except for the person who's rating the book. But I rate in half stars, so 4, 4.5, 5, and then I also have a 6-star category, which are like all-time favorites, the books that I will consistently read over and over again. In the last quarter, I had 71.9% of the books that I read were a 4-star or above. I know my reading taste really well, so I am able to keep that relatively high. Across the first 6 months of the year, it actually goes up to 72.9% of my reading I've rated 4 stars or above. It pays to know what kind of books you like to read and let that guide how you pick books. So that's how you keep your ratings really high. Yes, I have figured out how to do rating averages in my spreadsheet. It will be in the spreadsheet for next year. I'm not including it here just because I don't actually think the average rating means very much to anyone except me. And even then, it doesn't mean very much to me at all. A few other stats just in terms of thinking about overall reading. The most books I read in the last quarter were in May. I read 53 books in May, but across the year, January is my highest reading month. It's my summer holidays, so I read 81 books then. And also for anyone else who is new here, and this is your first video, I'm also a teacher. I read a lot of kids' books, including picture fiction, middle fiction, junior fiction, young adult fiction, and I include all of that in my reading spreadsheet. So that's why all of the numbers seem to be quite high, and why in January I read a lot, because I tend to read a lot of middle fiction in January, or junior fiction and middle fiction, to get ready for the year to see if there's going to be any books that I read into the school year. My most read format across the year so far have been ebooks at 46%. I've got to figure out a better way of doing this because I can combine physical books in terms of, because I separate my physical books into trade paperbacks and hardbacks, and also immersive reading counts into that. That's usually when I'm reading a physical book and listening to an audiobook, so that also counts. So I don't know whether you guys would like me to combine all of those into one stat and then have my digital reading. So ebook, like in ebooks, I count ebooks and e-arcs, but I don't know whether you want me to count audiobooks in there as digital reads, or if you want to keep it as physical, audio, and ebook. In fact, that might be something I change next year, is I just remove trade paperback and hardback, although I do like to keep track of that kind of thing. This is a wildly specific thing to me, and I don't know why it's so difficult for me to wrap my head around it. My most read readership category is adult titles for the last quarter at 70.6%, and across the year it is still adult at 63%. So that gives you a bit of a guide as to how many books are not adult titles. I continue to read mostly new releases, so 35% of my reading in the last quarter were books that were published in 2026, and 35.9% over the course of the year so far have been 2026 reads. I like to stay current. It's a thing. I like shiny new things. All right, diving into some money related items, I purchased $411.62 worth of books for myself. These are physical books. I'm really, really terrible at tracking books that I buy as ebooks, which is not as much as you would think anyway, because if I'm going to buy it as an ebook, there's a very good chance I'll buy it as a physical book, especially if I've already read it. I need to think about how I want to do that. I did go down in terms of my purchasing this month, but across the year I've spent over $1,000, so that needs to be looked at. For me personally, like, it's my money, I can do with it what I want. I think money is a really interesting thing, because while I have spent $1,000, I do want to go through the other stats because it also shows you how much money I have saved by using other services. Through receiving ARCs or finished review copies from publishers, authors, NetGalley, etc. In the last quarter, I saved $436.76. And across the year, I have saved $1,347.58. Some of those ARC copies I have then purchased as physical copies for my shelf for books that I really loved. Some of that I think balances out a little bit, but that is a lot of money that has been saved by not purchasing things. For my library savings in the last quarter, I saved $326.61, and across the year I've saved $808.23. Then there is my Kindle Unlimited subscription, which I am still subscribed to KU. And so far in the year, this one I had to do as a collective total, just because it made more sense in my head. I'm currently $90.76 above the total cost of my KU subscription across the year. So if you've seen my reading spreadsheet, I'll put a little screenshot of it here. I track the cost of purchasing the ebook minus the subscription cost every month. And then I have a little line at the bottom that subtracts the entire cost of the subscription across the year from the total cost of books read through the year. And that gives me my total. That was a really long-winded explanation. I'm really struggling today. I love stats, but stats are a thing. Alrighty, then moving into some fun things. So we have some reading challenges. Some I have discontinued for the rest of the year just because my brain is not here, and some that I have updated. I'm gonna go through them. The one challenge that is the challenge that I do every year that I really love because I get to set my own goals, I get to modify the goals through the year, it just makes me happy, is my bingo board from hell. So this is a reading challenge created by Win from Literary Diversions, where you get to create your own bingo board with challenges that support you and your reading. And that's what I do every year. I have some standard goals that I set every year because they're the kind of goals that make sense to me and my brain and what I want to achieve with my reading. And then I try and throw in some fun ones every now and then, but occasionally that doesn't work and I need to change them. So I have a video talking about how I've changed this for the second half of the year. This is the update. So my goal to read 80% of my 2026 physical TBR, I'm currently sitting at 89% of that read. I only have 11 books that I have brought in this year so far left to read. And I'm really, really pleased with that. At the end of 2025, I think I carried 46 books over into the new year. I would like to keep that book, where possible, down to 20 books carried into the new year. And yes, reading and collecting books are different hobbies in my brain. If I'm bringing a book in, I would like to read it in a timely fashion. The longer it sits on my shelf, the more likely I am to DNF it and get rid of it. And if I'm spending money on it, I would like to at least read it. After that, I can DNF it, I can get rid of it, whatever, that's fine. But I would like to at least say that I am trying the books that I'm interested in reading. That's my personal preference. For my complete 12 series, I've currently read 11 series. I have one that I'm currently in the process of finishing, and there is one series where another book is being released later in the year, and I will hopefully read that when it comes out, but it just kind of depends when it's released in the year. But I'm counting that series read and up to date for the moment, so I have one series left to finish. For my read 20 non-fiction titles, I'm currently sitting at 16 titles read, which is a better position than I was in last year, I think, at this time of the year. So hopefully I get through a few more non-fiction titles really soon. One of my updated squares is now to read 70% of my owned audiobooks. I'm currently sitting at 52% read of my owned audiobooks across multiple audiobook platforms like Audible and Libro FM and BookFunnel and whatever else I've got going on. I'm trying to read those down. For my goal of reading 100% of my 2025 physical TBR, so everything that carried with me into the year, I'm currently sitting at 60% read, which I think is great for this time of year. For my read 75 junior fiction, middle fiction, or young adult fiction titles, I'm sitting at 44 books read. I've read 2 anthologies out of the 6 that I was hoping to read this year. I have read 7 favorite books from the last 10 years out of the 10 that I was hoping to read, so I'm tracking nicely. Some of those have been series, some of those have been individual or first books in series, but I'm doing well. And then my second updated square was to read 90% of the ARCs that I acquire through the year. I'm currently sitting at 95%. The reason I set it at 90 is because I fully expect to acquire more in the second half of the year. So this number may fluctuate a little bit, but it's currently sitting at 95%. So technically I've hit the goal, but I have to maintain that goal for the whole year. So I'm pretty pleased with how all that's going. Then I'm participating in Izzy's 24 in 26 challenge, which is 24 random challenges that drop throughout the year. I'm up to date in it. The books that I read for reading challenges, I'll tell you the books, but I won't tell you what the prompts are because you have to be a member of Izzy's to participate in the challenge. But the 6 titles I read were Keep You Safe by Annabeth Albert, This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me by Lona Andrews, Face Off by Chelsea Curto, Confetti and the Rainbow Garden by Shane Janik, Off Base by Annabeth Albert, and Out on the Ice by Kelly Farmer. All of those fit the various prompts throughout the last couple of months. I was completing the Buzzword challenge, but I have stopped. This year, for whatever reason, the Buzzword prompts are not working as well for me, and they're actually causing more stress than anything, and I'm not someone who continues reading challenges if they cause me stress. So I've left it, and I will resume the Buzzword challenge and vlogs hopefully in 2027. And then there is the Read What You Own challenge, which is Izzy and Shay's, challenge to kind of read down your TBR. So for a bit of a reminder, at the start of the year, I was tracking physical books, ebooks, and audiobooks and trying to read down those TBRs. At the start of the year, I started with 46 physical books that I carried with me into 2026, 272 ebooks, and 58 audiobooks. So they were my starting numbers. I have since added, to all of those, but at the end of June, these are my numbers. So my physical books, I'm down to 29 books read, and that's after adding 109 books to that 46 total from the end of last year. So I've had over 150 books, and I'm physical books new to me, and I have read them down to 29, and I'm so happy with that number. My ebooks are down to 214, and that is through reading them, through DNFing them, but I also have a terrible bad habit of not tracking new books that come into my collection. So I can't tell you how many I've acquired, but that number is at 214, and I'm really pleased with that. My 58 audiobooks, despite adding a few to that as well, nowhere near as much as the physical or the ebook TBR, because I will borrow books as audiobooks from Libby, but I'm down to 30 from the 58. So again, I'm really pleased with that. And hopefully these numbers continue through the year, because even though I love having a lot of books to choose from, having a lot of books to choose from can also be really overwhelming when you are in a state. And while I don't ever want to get to 0, I would like those numbers to be reasonably manageable. And that is the end of my quarterly stats, and I'm really thrilled. Like, I'm so happy with how everything is going in my reading. I am definitely a little bit more all over the place in terms of picking up what I'm reading at the moment. Reading challenges are not working for me very much at all. So I'm just embracing the mood reading and the chaotic choosing of things. Also just putting down things that aren't working. Hopefully this continues for the rest of the year. In the comments, I would love to know what has been something that has surprised you about your reading this year in a good way, and maybe even a favorite book of the year so far. Feel free to share those down below. Otherwise, feel free to leave your current favorite emoji to let me know that you're here. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.